What's up, motherfuckers? GUKESH finished the first day of the tournament in the first position, ahead of Carlsen, Caruana, and Nakamura. But in the second day, Carlsen came with so high level, and he'll play GUKESH in the first round of the day in a very good game with the bishop pair. So we're going to analyze the game. Okay, Magnus open with knight f3. He liked this move so much. Every possibilities are open. d5, and now he came with fianchetto. d3, c6, bishop g2, bishop g4, c4, trying to open this g2 bishop, e6, and now Carlsen take on d5, and here Gukes give the bishop pair. Okay, let's understand what is the Gukes idea, because the bishop pair is an advantage in chess, so you not used to like to lead the bishop pair. But to let's understand why Gukes give the bishop pair. Okay, first giving this bishop, now the black development is so easy. So now black have zero problems to develop the rest of his pieces. So and sometimes with black you prefer to give a small advantage to your opponent, but manage to develop well the piece without problem, because there are other openings who are most to try to completely equal, but you can suffer in the opening if you doesn't uh, develop all your pieces. But if you manage to develop, you're going to be equal. But sometimes it's not so easy to develop. And there are other openings who give to your opponent a small advantage, but you are sure that you are going to develop all your pieces. And that's what Gukes do. He knows that this is a small advantage for white, but okay, he is going to develop all the pieces. And apart, it's not a huge advantage of the bishop pair, because they see that the f3 bishop is more or less blocked by this pawn. So, for example, that this bishop has more or less well blocked by this pawn. The structure is symmetrical. White have no so important breakthroughs. And apart, white black have the good bishop. He played the light square bishop, and after he played all his pawns in light square bishop, with a very typical plan. Okay, let's analyze the game. Uh, Short castle, knight c3, and here Carlsen Magnus will choose between d4 and d3. d4 is a good option. It's what Magnus choose. d3 is another possibility, but I prefer a little bit more d4. I prefer just to take the special advantage. d3. Sorry, I'm going to show us a little bit d3, knight f3, knight f6, sorry, bishop e3, e3, bishop e7, and here knight e2, knight b3, but I prefer more the plan by Magnus Carlsen with just d4. So d4, and here the machine really likes the move f5. The machine just want to place like this the pieces, the pawn f5, because yes, your opponent have the light square bishop and you haven't the light square bishop, so it was fine to place pawn in light squares to control more the bishop. So f5 was so interesting, yes, followed by, you see in the arrows, knight f6, bishop d6, queen d7, and rook c8. That could be a interesting plan. Okay, we can play knight f6, who is not bad, of course. And knight c3, bishop e7, e3 is our castle, like I told. Now Lucas make normal the development, and but okay, Magnus is still having the bishop pair, who is going to be a small advantage during all the game. Bishop d2, and apart, Magnus is very good player with the bishop pair. He have very good technique. Bishop d2, rook c8, queen e2, and here, okay, Lucas made the plan to reach d6 with the knight, who is not bad. The idea of knight d8 is knight d6. Okay, in this type of structure, the knight is so well placed on d6. But here the machines prefer a little bit to play g6 followed by h5. Like I told, I just place pawns in light squares to control the light square white bishop. So that could be a good plan, g6 followed by h5. Or queen d7, but the same idea, then d6, h5, and rook e8. But okay, knight d8 followed by knight d6 was fine. Now, Carlsen play rook c1. In this type of position with the c file are open, the most common rook to came to c1 was the f rook. And the rook a c1, who used to be a more typical move in normal position, in this position is not the best. And here, when the c file are open, when the both c pawns are traded in the queen's pawn, typically in the semi-slab positions, the best rook to take to came to c1 was the f rook. Okay, knight d6, bishop e1, queen d7, queen d1. Just let's say like Carlsen is just trying to gain pieces with to the queen side. Sorry. Now the idea of this move is leave the e2 square for the bishop. And here again, the machines prefer the plan of g6 followed by h5, or Yeah, rook c7, doubling rooks on the c5. That's another interesting plan. Oh, yeah, rook f8. Rook is play f5. Oh, okay, it's not bad. It's a normal move. But okay, the other possibilities are interesting too. Now Carlsen here had, for example, knight a4, knight e4, and now if a3, g5, and if bishop g2, g5. You should be in your mind this. You should keep in your mind this g5 because we are going to show this move many times. Or bishop g2 was another option, but okay, Carlsen still with his plan of just playing in the queen side. And here the best move by black was g5, followed by h5 and attack in the king side. Because okay, Carlsen is taking all his pieces to the queen side, so black should just attack in the king side, and yes, was the plan of the position here. It's just the good plan of the position. G5 followed by h5 and try to attack there and take space. Instead of that, in the following move we're going to see that GUKESH all the time made the second best move of the machine because all the time the best move is g5, but he doesn't understand that, and for that reason he never played that. But all the time he made a good move, but it's not the best because g5 is always the best. 94, 94. So all the Gook's moves are normal, but the only thing is that d5 always is better. Again, d5 was better, bishop d6 he played, f3, knight f6, and now rook c2, doubling rooks was better, followed by ab4 and knight c5. The plan of Carlsen was fine, but yeah, you should just prepare it more, a little bit more. With rook c2, rook c1, and then before. The rook on c2 is defending all the second rank. Okay, he goes DLD with knight c5, queen 7, and knight d3. Maybe he had the rooks doubling on c2, could be. Here there are no sacrifice on b7, but I prefer in general the two doubling first. Queen d3, again, rook is failed again. Here c5 was the best move, but okay, rook c7 was the second best. Before, finally, Carlsen plays a very good move. So in general, white is going to, because now we saw that the bishops are aiming to the queen side. Sorry, and the black pieces are aiming more to the king side. So that's why White should play in the queen side, and Carlsen understand that thing very well, and Lucas should play in the king side. And one of the things because Carlsen won this game is because Carlsen have so clear that he should attack in the queen side, and his advantage is in the king side, in the queen side. Sorry, and Lucas Lucas take many moves to finally understand that he should attack in the queen side. And okay, let's see, let's continue seeing the game. Rook f c8, b5. Now trading one pair of rooks, and Carlsen still with his plan, who is attacking the and take a space in the queen side. This is where he have the advantage. Knight f7, a5. Carlsen still with his plan, and finally Gukesh understand that he should attack in the king side. Is clear. Um, yeah, Magnus is taking many space in the queen side, so Gukesh should make something. So he played g5 finally. Very good move of Gukesh. But the problem comes now that after a6, b6, rook c1, here Gukes made a terrible move. Positionally, it's a horrible move. I just don't understand why the world champion can play this move. I like Gukes, he's a very good player, but in this exactly moment he made a horrible move. A three interrogation marks. He played e5. Okay, let's understand why e5 is so bad. Okay, first, I thought that the black plan is attacking in the king side. So if you play in g5 two moves ago, the logical continuation was h5. Of course, that's the typical. The logical if you play g5 is to play h5 at the following move. And what's the problem of play e5 here? Okay, first, your opponent have the bishop pair, and you are opening the position. Who used to be bad, and when your opponent have the bishop pair, this this at the open position benefits the bishop, and a closed position benefits the knight. So first you are opening the position. Second, you are open the light squares, which is the most important. That with e5 you are open the light square. Because for example, if you in one moment play g4 to open, you are open the dark squares. But with e5 you are open the light squares. And what's the bishop that you haven't? The light bishop. So you cannot open the squares of the bishop that you haven't and your opponent have. Apart that now the d5 pawn is going to be weak. the f5 pawn is going to be weak, and the black king is going to be weak because before the pawn chain defends well the king, but now the king is going to be open. Apart, you play g5 2 moves ago. With g5, your king is going to be more and more open. So always break the center benefit the player who have these pawns in front of his king, no so far advanced. Once you have your the pawns in front of your king so far advanced, it's going to benefit you so much to have the a close position. Uh, when the position is close, yes, you can just push the pawns in front of your king without so much danger. But when the position is open, it's so dangerous to push the pawns in front of your king. But Gukesh here made first he opened his king, and only 2 moves later he opened the center and the light squares, and a horrible, horrible move of e5 for many, many reasons. For example, if he wants to play e5, he can play here. Okay, this is not a good move, but at least you haven't the pawn on g5. You can defend f5 with g6. Your king is going to be safer. This position is only slightly advantage for white. Example, with d5, very good move. The position is equal, but okay, with e5, it's not the good plan. But at least white only have a slightly advantage because you have your pawn on g7. But the huge problem here is that you open with your pawn in g5, who makes your f5 pawn weak forever and your king weak forever. Stupid decision, and after e5, just the position is completely winning for white. And Carlsen won in a very, very good way. Just trade everything, and bishop d3, and where you're going to defend your f5 pawn? It's impossible. f4, Gukesh try, I don't know why, but Carlsen just take, and easy move. Just place the king in light square, and let's see if the king is completely open. This king is completely safe, and this king is completely open. You just open your opponent's bishop there. But it's so important that you don't make this mistake in your game. Okay, sometimes when you're playing against the bishop, you can open the position, but first you have the king safe, and second, if you are going to have very good square for the knights. Here, okay, so sometimes if you want to have good square for the knight, you can open. But here, black is not taking any square for the knight. Stupid. His king is open, his opponent king is not open. Because okay, if you open to reach a good square with the knight, it's fine. But here he's not reaching anything with the knight. And apart, he's open his opponent bishop, so stupid move. e5 by Gukesh, king g7, queen e2, bishop d4. Okay, here e4 is either be better, but okay, Carlsen is just completely winning. Here queen e5 is the best to survive either, but white is winning with all the lines. Here again, queen c6 was better. Bishop f5, and here. Okay, this is his last try, queen e7, and the same game, but yes, white is winning in all the lines. Just because the bishop pair here is going to be so important. And apart, the e6 pawn is going to be better in a open position, because in an open position, one day this bishop can reach b8 and take this pawn and win the game. In a close position, the e1 bishop has so much difficulties to take on e7. But okay, no. Bishop before. Yes, finally the bishop is threatening to go to b8. Let's go back in this position. This bishop in the fucking life can reach b8. But after you open all the position, now there are open files and open diagonal for the bishop to reach b8. Takes, and now the rest is so easy for Carlsen. Just attack the knight, and just Gukesh here just resign because he's going to lose the d5 pawn. In some moment white is going to take on d7 and play bishop b8. The king is coming to d5 or what you want. So here we can resign. It's an interesting game, but there are only one important moment, who is the moment of e5. And Bukesh just lost the game in one move. Until here, it was a good game. Okay, Bukesh doesn't understand early that d5 was okay. Let's not two moves. And Gukesh doesn't understand early that d5 was the best move. But okay, he finally understands it, and they reach this position which is more or less equal. So both players have their respective advantage, but here Gukesh made this incredible blunder e5 and just lost the game. So and lost the leader because then Carlsen past him in the standing. So that's my one of my favorite game of the tournament, and I really like how Carlsen managed the ace of pair when the position was open. Let's see the next round, the tournament how continue. Bye bye, motherfuckers.